3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, welcome to Powering Through Adversity, a series where we talk about how you can overcome adversity in the COVID-19 world.
If you've been laid off or are feeling unsure about your financial situation, we want you to know you are not alone and we want to help.
I'm Sam Kwong, aka Sammy K.
And I'm Matt Diamond, aka Matty D. And we are both reformed CPAs turned veteran recruiters inspired to support our global community that have been economically impacted by COVID-19 and its aftermath.
We hope you enjoy the show. All right, let's go.
All right, let's do this. Hey, everyone. You got Matt Singer here and Sam Kwong. Reason that we're putting this together today, this video, and is hopefully we want to give back to whoever out there that has been impacted by the COVID-19 stuff. And I know everybody's kind of thinking about, how they could potentially help. And it's great because I think it's cultivated this huge community of compassion. And Sam and I have come together and said, well, we have a lot of experience helping people get jobs in some form. And what we're seeing right now is that people are being impacted negatively economically. So, we hope that through these videos and extending ourselves as resources that we can help people potentially, get back in the saddle or get back to a place of success for them, whatever that means, and, as painless as possible. And I think that's what's really always motivated us as, again, just experienced recruiters. So, what we're going to try to do is put out a series of videos, and that could be specific to just how to do the job search or how we would approach it if we're in your shoes. And it won't be specific to any one type of role, but we're going to get more broad in that sense, right? So that could be something like, cultivating mindset. And that's what we're going to talk about today, to even potentially things like financial literacy and creating a plan there. Anything that we think is helpful to create a conversation around, to help people confront adversity that might be coming their way. So to introduce ourselves, I'll go first, then pass it off to Sam. My name is Matt Singer, have experience in the recruiting world, both as an agency professional, and then also in kind of just working for companies at high growth startups, what have you, for different types of clients and building out their recruitment functions. And along the way, we've interacted with tons of different candidates across many different functional roles and helped them land successful roles. So I'll pass it off to Sam for him to kind of chime in and just introduce himself, and then we'll jump into today's topic and what we want to achieve.
Mm-hmm. So again, my name is Sam Kwong, everyone, and for myself, I have not only accounting experience and my CPA, but the recruiting experience really comes from the U.S. side and now in Canada, where I actually reside. And so I think when it comes to global or North America, I would say I have a pretty good handle on the recruiting practice, and that's where I really want to give back, because I know that recently there's been tons and tons of people that have been impacted with layoffs, and so I really want to play my part, and that's really why Matt and I have decided to put our heads together. We both have CPA backgrounds, and we really want to be able to help not only on the recruiting side, but we do understand that until the people that have been impacted with layoffs find a job, there are going to be financial constraints, and that's where we want to utilize some of our CPA financial literacy skills to be able to help. And so we really hope that you find value in this. And Matt, why don't we kick it off today?
Cool, awesome. So good stuff. I think what we really want to talk about today, and the focus of this specific conversation, is to be focused on mindset. Everything kind of starts with perspective. Before you start talking about financial literacy or getting your own house in order or going to market on a job search, until you understand and have the right outlook to do that in a positive way, it doesn't matter. So we're going to talk about a couple things through our own experiences that have helped us confront adversity in lesser markets, and getting our mindset right, and we hope it's all helpful for you. So, Sam, why don't you kind of start it off with, kind of the first bullet point there?
No, I'd love to. And so the first bullet point we have here is really about perspective. We know that there's a lot going on. We know that there's a lot of negativity as well when we're looking at the news. There's lots going on that's not going our way, and quite frankly, to the human race, right? But I think what's important is that we first have to reframe our perspective, really trying to find appreciation for what we're really doing in our day to day. And that can be as simple as when you're waking up, finding things that you really appreciate. It could be utilizing the time that we have now to do the things that we want to. And I call this leveling up. And I think if we're able to reframe a perspective and put it in a way where oftentimes, if we kick it back 3 months, we've all said at work where, oh, I wish I had more time to work on myself personally. I wish I had more time to fill up my own cup, right? It's good to say these type of things, but now we actually truly have an opportunity where when you wake up on the weekend, you don't have a lot of errands to run. There's not a lot of social networking where you're going out and meeting friends. So why not take the time to reframe the perspective and say, hey, maybe I'll take the time to learn a new language. Maybe I'll take the time to organize myself. Maybe my room is full of clutter right now. Something that I did this morning, I was like, you know what? I really want to change my perspective again. And I remade the whole office, right? Remade the whole bedroom and taking it a little bit more granularly. When you reframe perspective, it's taking a situation that may be daunting or that may be unpredictable. For example, like COVID, no one knows how long it's going to last. Some people actually predict that it might be a year. But if we're able to take that experience and say, hey, you know what? Let's reframe this perspective. How can we take this situation and funnel it into a positive? And that can be something positive that will be generated when we hang out with our friends, our family. If you're in a household, your wife is there and your kids are there, right? This is a perfect time to really spend the quality time that you guys deserve, right? When you wake up instead, now you don't really have to rush to the office. You've saved yourself 2.5 hours. Spend that precious time to say hi and good morning to them, right? Have that breakfast with them, right? So I think when it comes to reframe perspective, it's not just on a career perspective. It's really on a mindset, on a mental level and a physical level. And if you're able to do that, this COVID-19 situation, it will be part of our past. And so, Matt, I think for myself, I really wanted to pass this off to you to chime in on this topic as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's always great to say in theory, what we want to reframe perspective, and I think it's awesome to say that, and but walking the walk is really the important part. How do you actually apply that? And so, I'd like to share my own, and I'd be curious to know your thoughts, Sam, to actually kind of provide some useful tools that will allow people to do this. And I think what allows you, I think, is the operative question to look at something as a positive versus a negative. And I think to start out, it's cultivating gratitude to me. And you can do that in a couple different ways. I'm not a thought leader in this, but I can share how I've tried to do it. And so I think, and I've seen it a lot lately, and it's actually just even seeing it in others, it's been really inspiring. Before all this COVID-19 stuff, what I would see is individuals really focusing on, okay, I want to make more money or I want to get leveled up in my career. And we wanted to continue on sort of that, bull market ride that we have been doing and we hope to return to. But this has been kind of a kick in the pants. And what I've seen both through myself and Sam, through you and through everyone else, I am just like, thanking my lucky stars for what I have, right? For example, I got a 5-month-old at home and she's wonderful and I get to see her every morning and she smiles and she's healthy. There isn't one person in my life that has come down with the COVID-19 stuff, and they're happy and healthy. From a financial perspective, and this isn't showing off, but I feel very appreciative to have been in a place where what I was doing, before all this happened to have plans in place where I had some runway financially where I don't have to worry about putting food on the table. And so just knowing that I have the basic necessities and really everything I need to be happy, healthy, family, friends, I have some money in the bank to support us. Again, very luckily, just the way things shook out. I didn't have a ton of money in the market, so I wasn't impacted there. And I feel very lucky to be in that spot, because I can, right now a lot of people are worse off. And chances are, if you were to look around, there's always going to be someone that's potentially struggling 10 times more than you are. And once you start to get out of your own head and think about what someone else is going through and less so much yours, it makes you appreciate what you have. So one way that I've tried to make this experience positive, in cultivating that gratitude. And again, I've learned this from others through the Tim Ferriss podcast. There's many different, others, people that have kind of trumpeted this, that are very successful individuals, but just having a morning gratitude practice. So my morning routine has, for at least the last couple of weeks, I've been really trying to drill it in, of waking up, doing meditation first thing before I kind of jump into anything. And again, I can't always do that with the baby, but I try my best. And then having a 5 to 10 minute exercise where I'm asking myself prompts of, for example, what are 3 things that I am just thankful for today? How could I potentially give back today? And when you do that, over even a 5 or 6 day period, I think it really starts to seep in and plant seeds that are enormously, have enormous potential and impact, for you to kind of, again, reframe your perspective as you go into a period of potential adversity. So that's how I'm approaching it. It's been successful for me. That's probably the biggest point I wanted to share, is find your own way of cultivating gratitude, because I think that's where perspective really starts, being appreciative for what you have. So, I mean, how are you doing that, Sam? How are you cultivating gratitude, or how do you think about reframing perspective in a way where you can see this period of adversity as a positive versus a negative?
Well, I think I mentioned this before as well, but, to step back a little, even when it comes to reframing perspective, it is really difficult. And the reason why is because when it comes to fear setting, right, like there's a lot of fear here, right? There's the fear of unknowns. It really comes down to fear-based mentality is what we call it, right? And so I think, to answer your question here, how I reframe it is by really addressing what some of those fears are. And ever since the COVID-19 situation, I know we all have different fears, but this can range from, health issues. This can range from, family issues, wealth issues, right? Financial issues, right? So I try really hard to address some of those poisons. And so again, to answer your question here, some of my fears were, I have a wife, I have a family to take care of. I try to play a part, with my family, whether it's financially, whether it's mentally. And so I look at that and I say, hey, how am I going to get to the end of 2020 without, stressing myself out? And some of those fears are, hey, my job situation could change, right? My income could, honestly, it could be next week, it could be the week after, zero, right? How am I going to deal with that? On a physical level, right? We're unable to go outside, we're unable to go to gyms, right? How can I change my mindset there? So I really take all the fears that I have and say, okay, let's start addressing this, right? Because it's one thing, for example, Matt, you brought up a good point, the stock market, right? A lot of people are sweating because they put a lot of money, which, think of the retired folks, right? They have all their RSPs in there, right? But I really try to address it by saying, okay, these are all the things that I currently have fear in, right? And I really tried to find resolution with it. And so, for example, financials, that's a really big one, right? How I come about addressing it is I try to paint the picture of the worst case scenario, right? And the worst case scenario is if this full year COVID-19 is going to be running for a year or two, right? How does my life change, right? And it really is, for example, it's going to change in a lot of ways. It's going to be changing in a way where I have to spend differently. And, full disclosure, I'm already very frugal, but again, I have to maybe even be more frugal, right? It's $5 hats, right? It's $10 hoodies. Maybe it's not even buying clothes, right? When it comes down to, food and shelter, I think what really is interesting during this time is health is actually the most important. When you look at all the fortune and fame of, people buying vehicles, people spending on, things to really impress people that, you know, they don't really care about, and the people don't really care about them. Those things in this type of situation doesn't matter anymore. Your Ferrari has a value of zero right now, right? People only care about food and a roof over their heads. And so I think in this time here, I wanted to talk about some of those fears. And now, I know, Matt, my answer here is long-winded, but I reframe the perspective to summarize here. I reframe it by first addressing some of those fears, and then taking a note out of your book as well. It's really that gratitude. When I wake up, I actually get to see my family, my wife, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, as I live with them now. And I'm really appreciative that they're all healthy, and the people around me and my friends. And again, knock on wood, Matt, you're healthy, your family's healthy, the people around me, again, knock on wood, are healthy. And I haven't met someone internally in my internal network that has been impacted. I really try to paint a positive picture so that we can all move on together. And so that's one of my techniques, really, is to first address those fears.
Awesome. And I think, thank you for sharing. I mean, just to even kind of repeat what you said, or what I took from that in a very summarized way. I think one is, and I think, and any times there's a situation of adversity, or a scariness to something that we're approaching, and there's a lot of unknown to it, individuals, me included, have a fight or flight mentality. And I think one of those fight or flight mechanisms can be to, quote unquote, kind of be like the ostrich and stick your head in the ground on it. So
Yeah, love that. Yeah.
it's always better, I've always found, and I've learned, and this is something that I definitely believe in and want to trumpet, the unknown is always going to be scarier than whatever your defined fear is. And so, kind of what you said, and I'm happy to more share like what my fears are, and you talked about some of yours, right? But just going through and asking yourself, and taking that time and going through the exercise and saying, what am I truly scared of here? Right. So that could be financially related. I don't know how much money I'm going to be bringing in over the next 6 months. Okay, well, let's define, what do you need to live? If you have yourself and your family, what is that burn rate, so to speak? Is that 5K? Is that 6K a month? Whatever it is. Right. And then let's think about, okay, so half of that is just defining it. Right. And then the other flip side of the coin is, again, cultivating that gratitude, and just thanking your lucky stars, and taking that time and creating a practice for what you currently have. And between the two of those, it kind of leads to this situation where you can start to create a plan, right? So now you have a reframe perspective on a daily basis, or whatever you're doing, you're creating gratitude and appreciation for what you currently have. Now you have mapped out what your fears are, right? Whether they be financial related, health related, I'm scared about, I suck with boredom. I'm scared about being bored all the time, right? At home, right? Where the only thing I have to do is, eat a bunch of potato chips and make, pizza, right? Like, my health decline is, from a long-term perspective, is a worry for me. I haven't really worked out in a week and a half. I haven't got a haircut. It's why I'm wearing a hat, right? There's things that I think worry me. And so, to kind of summarize up until this point, reframe perspective through gratitude and appreciation practices. 2, right, define your fears. And then 3, start to lead into, well, creating a plan on how you can try to start to address those fears. And the nice thing about what's going on right now is, it's not even like, who knows what's going to happen with the economy. If this is going to be a temporary dip and we're going to correct in Q3 or Q4, no one knows. But I think what's really nice, and, again, to kind of see the positives in all this, is that we're all going through this globally together. How many videos, I don't know if you've seen them on Instagram, right? I saw a video that Jamie Foxx posted, and it's just so inspiring, of Brooklyn, and it's someone on their balcony, and you see the whole community just singing, rap together, right? Just singing Biggie at the top of their lungs, right? The whole community, right? Or in Spain, there was a guy on one balcony where he was playing a piano, and another guy on a playing a saxophone. And it's been really inspiring to see how people have worked together to get through this as not just a local community, but a global community. And that's really inspiring to me. And it says that at the core, when things go crazy, that we actually do have each other's backs. And I think that that's something that we forgot over the last, whatever it is, last bull run, where it's just everything's going good. We've kind of all been out for ourselves. And, so that's been really inspiring. And I think another thing that I think from the perspective thing is what we've been talking about, and I want to chime in with you on what your thoughts on this. But one thing we've been talking around, but to almost kind of define it, is looking at any situation, right? And you can take this mindset to anything you encounter in life. This won't be the last time you have adversity, where you say, where's the opportunity in this, right? And more simply, how can you look at this as this is something that's happening potentially for you rather than to you, right? And those are very different ways of looking at this situation, right? I think a lot of us, it's very easy to say, oh man, this is horrible. Like I lost my job, right? This is really terrible. How could this happen? How could the powers that be let this happen to me, right? I don't, what did I do to deserve this? But looking at it as, how can this be happening for you is it really an opportunity where you can actually turn it into a positive and gain strength from it. And, I think why I was so inspired to do this series where, in a big way, we wanted to give people insights and strategies to help get back jobs is both of us have been laid off before. And at the time, it sucked. At the time, it felt very lonely. I mean, this was my first job out of college. And mind you, this was in, right after the, 2008, 2009 bubble, right? So kind of similar potential job market to what we're seeing now. And I had gotten a job and I got laid off 8 months in. And now I'm kind of untouchable because I'm, one of many in the job market. And I think it took me for me, it's like if I can help someone get back out on the saddle sooner by sharing my own story and what I could have potentially done better or what I would want to tell myself when I was in those shoes, then that's, again, something that I think I'm uniquely potentially qualified to help someone with. And that motivation has always been something that has carried me through as a recruiter. But I will say, and I think when you lose your job, and I will say this to anyone, if you reach out to us afterwards and you lost your job and you need someone to talk to, because we're more than happy to be that resource for people. What I will tell people is share that story and say, you know what, I would have never wound up where I am today without that happening. I would have potentially stayed in a job process or a job path that ultimately wasn't right for me. And it would have, delayed me having certain experiences that I would have learned about myself that got me to, where I am, being in the recruiting field. And then having that experience where I can actually, use it as a tool to empower people. I mean, you could get even more philosophical and say, well, I would have never moved to San Francisco. I would have never met my fiance. We would have never had the baby that I have, right? Which is like the most important thing in my life. So, and I've seen it time and again too, where, people lose jobs and it feels horrible at the time. And then they look back 9 months later and something happened at that company and they say, you know what, I really dodged a bullet there. And now I'm at this amazing place, right? Or I took time off and learned this new skill set. And now I'm, on this whole new path that I always wanted to be on that I never had the opportunity to pursue because I was just so heads down in my career. So I think that's the biggest thing is we don't always know what doors will open, but if you see it as a source of opportunity of this is happening for you, right? You're opening yourself almost from an energy perspective, and I don't want to get too foofy on this, where you're allowing yourself to receive what could potentially come your way, and that's something that I'm really excited about, helping people kind of cultivate that mindset as they go through these times of strife. What are your thoughts on that, Sam? I mean, that was a long-winded, soapbox of mine that I'm clearly very passionate about. Um, how do you think about seeing this as an opportunity versus something that's happening for you?
Perspective, so I won't, chime in on that again. But I guess what I will say now is we're we're creating this series and starting with our mindsets first, because unless the mind is primed, we're unable to take action into it, right? So typically, the fear is all in here, right? And once you get over that fear, you can then set up, a game plan to project, the specific action items that you want in order to continue on with your life, right? And so I guess that's where we really wanted to, kind of first say, in order for at least, I'll be very specific for myself, right? I'm able to prime my brain by telling myself that in no matter what circumstance, I can go back to the beginning of where my career started. And, Matt, you know this, and, some other viewers might know this, but again, my first job was, janitorial services, dishwashing, right? And my mindset is always, in the worst case scenario, someone here, and, quite frankly, it's not even dishwashing now because all the restaurants are closed. So now it's, janitorial services, and those are gone as well, right? But I've also done snow sweeping. It's snowing right now in Calgary, and I've done it before when I came back 9 months or 10 months, actually, no, a year and a half now, year and a half ago, where I did snow removal services, right? But I think we talked about reframing perspective. We talked about the fears, right? And I'm addressing that. Now it's really to take action, because Matt, quite frankly, you and I, we can sit here and talk all day, right? But for us, it's even difficult for us to put some things into action, right? And if we have decided that this is the time for us to refine ourselves, then let's, create an action plan and stick to it. And what I really mean by this is you first have to cultivate this humbleness, this sense of entitlement that it's like, hey, you know what? I might be a director of finance. I might be a controller. I might be the head of talent. There's no recruiting needs right now, right? Quite frankly, Matt, as recruiters for you and I, we're out of jobs, right? And so I think if we're able to be humble enough now to say, okay, even if we don't have, work for us, frame your mindset in a way where, hey, 2020 is going to be a year of giving back to myself, my family, and my community. Even if this whole year runs, and yes, I know most of you might be thinking, and even myself is like, okay, how am I going to do that? How am I going to take care of my family and the community, right? I still have bills to pay. I still have rent to pay, right? And so, I want to start addressing that. The action plan really is frame your mindset and then put this action plan in. And when you put this action plan in, you're really trying to control what you can, right? And that's really, Steve Covey says it best in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He really talks about the circle of influence, right? And Matt, remind us, let's add the link, right? So that, people can read this if they haven't. Obviously, super popular book here, right? But when you can control the things you can, your life really gets better because you focus less on the crap and the garbage that you don't have control over. For example, what people think about you. For example, the things that you don't have a direct influence on, right? And now if you start controlling what you can, it's all of a sudden saying, hey, Sam, okay, you can't be a janitor anymore. You can't be a dishwasher anymore. You can be a snow sweep, service, right? maybe I'll do that for a bit to pay my bills. And then again, back to the financial literacy, I highly, highly encourage for those of you that have done it or haven't done it, an emergency fund. This is what it's really for, to live really nimble, right? And say, hey, you know what? You don't have automotive expenses, you don't have gas expenses, you do have rent, you do have food, right? Which are the two main expenses. Start planning how much of that emergency fund you have and how long, what's your run rate. And Matt, you kind of talked about this, right? But I'm just being really specific, right? And saying, you know what, these are some of our heaviest costs, right? But I want to say one last thing, chiming in on your question here, Matt, which is, this is not a time to take your ego and say, I'm going to battle this through myself. This is a time where you share things with your family, you share the feelings, you share your fears, right? And you work together. And the reason why I say this is because I talk about a lot of these fears with my wife. I talk about a lot of these fears, Matt. We've had a lot of sidebars about this. That's why we're probably speaking with more confidence now. Because, just because we're talking about it now doesn't mean we weren't scared shitless 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, right? We might sound a little bit more confident now, but again, the main point that I'm really trying to make here is that we really have to lean on each other, right, to get by. Matt, like I'll point you out. Where you helped me out was, I think a few days ago you were doing meditation. You're like, hey, Sam, I got this Headspace app. Use it. And you were sharing it with me, right? And I think that's one of the things where I'm like, wow. And you,
Don't
you
tell
kind of shared this
Headspace.
as well. Yeah, I don't know what the privacy, restrictions are, but
That's the
again,
one password I use
right?
for all my passwords, so be
I'm sure
careful.
yeah, no, I'm sure it's like, even if they found out, they're like, oh wow, they're getting the word out. But I guess the point I was trying to make was, Matt, you shared something with me during this time, and I'm more in the same way. Where 3 weeks ago I was down to 4 rolls of toilet paper and I posted it up, right? No, I think it was 6 rolls, right? So I sounded a little more confident, and so I was like, hey, whoever needs toilet paper, I got 6 rolls left. Because like my thinking is like, I believe in humanity, even though I see people shoving each other at Costco for toilet paper, wherever you are. I believe that if I run out of toilet paper, I'm sure Matt will pay expedite postage, right, through UPS to ship me like, I'm sure my neighbor will. And honestly, again, I have pretty rough edges, right? Yet when it comes down to it, I'll use a wet towel and wash it and rinse it with soap,
That's what
and
I
then
was
I'll
going
use
to
it
say.
again,
Like,
right?
getting back to the cultivating humbleness and the reframing perspective, right? Because there are individuals in India, right? And if you
Mm-hmm.
travel, it's really easy to start to get these different perspectives. There's people in India that have used their left hand as their quote unquote toilet paper their whole life. That's why they don't shake with their left hand. It's just part of the culture, right? And I'm not saying
Mm-hmm.
that that's where we need to be, but
Mm-hmm.
like there's a whole world of people out there that don't even see that as an issue, right? So
Mm-hmm.
at any rate, like be okay with being more humble, right? Try to get your ego out of the way,
Mm-hmm.
reframe perspective. And I think kind of the last big comment here, and I
Mm-hmm.
kind of hit on it briefly before we kind of, talk about where the next video might lead. And I'll mention that in a moment, is just like, you are not alone. Everybody is
Mm-hmm.
going through this together. This is an unprecedented time where, again, 2008, 2009, right? Every other economic dip or whatever, economic activity still happen, and it's still happening, but it's a very weird time where we're seeing activity completely almost come to a standstill in a lot of different
Mm-hmm.
places. And that's unprecedented, and that's impacting everyone, and it has a complete ripple effect globally, right? We could have a whole
Mm-hmm.
macroeconomic debate about this on a separate video. Um, but where I'm being really inspired, and I think where I've seen a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people step up just to help others and say, we're going to get through this together. And when you start to realize that you are not the only person being plagued with, fears that are scary, or I don't know what I'm going to do, or, getting so, almost into this fight or flight mentality where you kind of just stick your head in the sand. Everybody's dealing with this right now, right? So the more you can figure out for yourself, it's like emergency preparedness. The more you can take care of yourself and get to that right place, the more you can potentially give those types of principles and resources to others. So I think leading into the potential next video, right? Today was about, how to cultivate that mindset and lead up into creating that plan. I think, Sam, I'd be curious to know your thoughts, but I think as a next video,
Mm-hmm.
and I really just came
Mm-hmm.
up with this as we're talking about it, is actually
Right.
going through some of these things and doing a part two and creating a plan. And maybe that means us
Love
just
it.
creating our
Mm-hmm.
own plans over the course of the video and sharing what we're doing. And then again, making ourselves available for everyone out there that might be seeing this or listening to it. Again, if we're fortunate enough to get that type of, people kind of chiming in. Where Sam and I can help is by giving our time. We are only two individuals, but we want to make ourselves available to help anybody out there put this plan into action. And we are not experts by any means. We are just kind of seen. We just want to be seen
We
as,
just want to help.
we just want to help.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And if
Mm-hmm.
anything we said here today, even at one point resonated with you or was something that you have yet to put into practice and you want to, let's work through it together. Reach out to us, direct message us, whatever. Right. We'll set up a time. We'll chat with you directly. Again, we're in this together. We want to be there for you, and we'll work on putting together a video soon of Sam and I actually doing this for ourselves, putting together that plan in place. Because while we've done a bunch of it, on our own right, I think it'd be good to share it publicly.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you for sharing that. And my closing thoughts here is that, this whole first introductory video in our series is really, again, to frame your mindset, right? So, we really hope that you found value in this. But again, I'm very big on takeaways, right? Because it's one thing to think, right? And it's one thing to do, right? And so I think that if there is one takeaway that I could suggest after watching this video, it's, again, reframe your perspective, really write down some of those fears. And when you write down some of those fears, really try to address them and bring in your most supported network. This could be your best friend. This could be your family. This could be your wife. This could be your kids, right? Bring your family in on this and share, hey, you know what? I just lost my job, and financially we're going to have some constraints, but let's work through this together. And again, don't battle this through yourself, right? We're all facing this together. Call Matt. Honestly, if you don't like me, call Matt. If you don't like Matt, call me, right? If you don't like the both of us, call someone else, right?
Yeah, we'll find
But
someone else for you to
really,
talk to.
yeah. Hey, Matt, not everyone loves us, and that's okay. But I wanted to address this takeaway because it's really important where we first address and prime our mindset. But then again, writing some of those things down, again, it really goes back to what we talked about, which is controlling what we can. And what you control is how you think, and it's what you do, right? And so in our next video, we'll be more sequential in writing down what some of those plans are, but our plans are different from yours, right? And so that's why I really suggest write some of those things down, get some of your poisons out about what you're really fearing, talk about it with people, and quite frankly, share it with us. And I think we'll be off to the races, and honestly, COVID's going to be behind us in a matter of time.
Awesome, and we'll be stronger coming out of it.
Hey.
So good stuff.
Great.
Awesome conversation today here, Sam. Let's get this out there to the masses, and let's continue to help people out where we can.
Appreciate how we have more time to do this, Matt. Love you, buddy. Love your family.
Appreciate it. All right, take care. Good luck, everyone. Bye.
Thank you for listening, everyone. Today's show notes can be found at www.powering-through-adversity.com. If you've enjoyed the show, please like, comment, share, and consider subscribing to at Powering Through Adversity. We can also be found on all of your favorite podcast sources. Until next time, stay healthy, stay happy, and good luck, everyone.